Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for attending the training that I was asked to do about Ride with GPS. I've been using Ride with GPS really since I became a cyclist about 13 years ago. My wife and I started, and the questions were, how long was the ride? What was the total elevation gain? And what was the max grade? And where were the bathroom breaks? Well, I'm not sure if it helped with the last one, but it really did help with the others and being able to plan out routes. And the tool has gotten a lot better over the years. And of course, now it's even better with the advent of the new Garmin's or Wahoos that people have. So we will talk about how to plan a good route. And I think there's uh, a lot of good benefits to doing that, about using Ride with GPS. If you have a ride, you want the fellow riders that have decided to join you to at least participate and know the full route so that they can meet you at the rest stops. There was a good ride last year. In fact, one of my favorite rides last year was the Newt Brigade ride. And unfortunately, there was a rider from uh, Fremont area that was a little bit behind us. And because the turn wasn't really well marked into the Sally Gale farm, that she missed that, and we were all back there. And I think I saw her continue riding on Chillingo Valley. So having a good route planning on using Ride with GPS will really help people to make sure that they stay with the group. Even if they fall behind, they know where the meeting spots are going to be and where the route is going to be. So I just have a few minutes of a presentation here where we'll talk about accessing, planning, and editing, planning using the web route tool. I'm not going to be dealing with how to design a route using your phone. We're going to do it based off of the web and computer interface. So, and then we'll actually go into live examples showing tips on how to actually do a route, some of the features that are in there, and then also editing a route. So again, the advantages of Ride with GPS are planning new and interesting routes. You can find different ways to get around someplace and do it. In particular, I've used this when I've gone to new areas, like go down to Santa Barbara or up in Bend, Oregon, and you can plan a good route for areas that you don't really know very well, and still have an enjoyable route. You can determine the elevation gain, max grade, et cetera, plan for the rest stops, and then in particular, be able to communicate this information to everybody, keeps everybody on the same route. They could use it to print a cue sheet if they want to use a written cue sheet, or you can download it to the Garmin, Wahoo, or et cetera, the bike computers for the turn-by-turn directions, which I think quite a few people are using now, and it's really helpful and a good feature. So I actually have a Ride with GPS account, and when I log into my account, I have my information, but I also have the Marin Cyclist. But I'll show you how to get there in two places. So if you haven't already signed up with the club account on Ride with GPS, you can do so with the link that was in the calendar invite. And then if you're accessing from the Marin Cyclist webpage, make sure that you're logged in to the Marin Cyclist. If you go into Ride Leaders, there's the link for Ride with GPS, and then you could click on that and get into the route planning portion. And I'll actually access it that way in a minute. And then you come to this page, and then here is the planning tool. One of the things that I wanted to make sure people were aware of, there's a heat map which shows the most people that are using the route. So if it's blue, it's not a route that many cyclists are using, but it aggregates all the data from people using the Garmin's and uploading it to the website, and then if it's red, it's showing them that it's the most used site. So again, if you're planning an area that you're not familiar with, be it out of state or even a Healdsburg ride or something else over in Napa County, if you stick to the red routes, you're generally going to be pretty well, because that's what a lot of cyclists are using. Therefore, we assume that they're the relatively safer routes for cyclists. We'll also talk about points of interest and some other things. Points of interest are give the visual reference. These are things can highlight a critical route details, like in buildings or other information. These aren't tied to the route. They're just sort of an informational thing that can be on the map. The custom cues, however, communicate the routing points. It's just like a cue, turning left onto Redwood Highway or something like that. But if it's on people are using their phone with a route, you'll actually give them an audio, or if they're using their Garmin, you'll give them a visual display on the screen. And so this is best for critical navigation, like if it's a roundabout or something like that, and you want to make sure that they go off onto the third exit or something like that, then it would be very helpful. And then that actually moves with the route. So if you redesign the route, that cue is going to stay with it. So let's get into a live demo. We're going to do creating a basic route, and then I'll also cover making a ride that you've done a route, and then doing an editing. Now, based on questions that come up, we may consider a follow-on session. You can try to email suggested topics and questions, for that, but I'm not going to be available. I'm still a working guy, so I'm not going to be able to do a real-time ride with GPS support, but there is actually a good help feature in there too. But I want to give you confidence so that you could be able to go in there yourself and get going with it. So let me drag this over there. All right. So here I am at the Marin Cyclist page, and then you see we don't see anything here that would indicate ride with GPS. But once I log in, now I have the ride leader menu, and I can click on ride with GPS. And then I could go into the plan mode. And so up here you have different map options. There's the default is the ride with GPS map. There's also a satellite version of the map. And so, for example, this could be helpful. Like for the Three Bridges ride, there's a stop that we've done at the Red Oak Victory in Richmond. Well, it might be easier to pinpoint that. That's not going to show up on a regular map. But if you look at the satellite image, you'll be able to identify where that ship is and mark that as a custom cue that's going to be a stop point for a photo or just a few minutes. So the ride with GPS map is generally pretty good. You can try the other one and see which ones you like. The heat map here, you can see how this is with the heat maps off, and then this is with the heat map on. Then you have some buttons over here. One of your favorites, make sure you learn to use the undo or the redo. And if you really want to mess up and start over, you can hit the clear map. So, and then you can also just easily take it to a point, and if you want to reverse the route and come back, you just hit the reverse route and go out and back. So let's pretend we're going to do, and I'm going to actually do this. I'll post it. I'm going to do a variation of the Red Whale ride in Sandra that we do on Sundays. So you can zoom in to help find it. The most important thing to do when clicking on a route is don't click on the middle of an intersection. It sort of confuses it. As you see, you can look here, it's like turn right, turn left, and it just sort of confuses it. So don't click on an intersection, click just before or just after an intersection. So I'm going to undo that and then click again here to set my starting point, and then click here. So now I have left on the Paul Drive and then right onto Redwood Highway like we want. And it's always good to follow along. You can look at your cues and make sure that it's routing correctly. Sometimes if you click at the right spot, it's going to send you a different way. So it's good to keep along, and then you always have that undo feature. So I'm clicking along, and then we're going to join the Marinewood bike path here. All right, so something went wrong there, making a U-turn. So I must have did a double click. Let me uncorrect that. All right. And you don't have to, depending on the road, like if it's Chileno Valley, you could go, 10 miles down the road and click again. So it just depends on how busy the streets are, how many turns or intersections there are to make sure you want to go on the route that you want. So, all right. So here I'm clicking just before the intersection, and then a little bit after. Then that makes sure that I've gone the right way that I want to. And then here we are going up Sunset, and then we can do Cambridge. And now it actually didn't take us down to this intersection, but you know what? I want to change this around and do something different with this route. So I'm going to undo a couple and say, instead, let's go through the College of Marin along the Fire Road, and then come out on Indian Valley. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that now down here on the elevation map, it shows this road as being an unpaved surface. So it gives you that graphical representation. You'll also see it here as almost dashed line. So we have a little bit of a variation now of this route. So I'm going to continue plotting this like DJ would, and then including and then in order to get a marker into Miwok Park, I'm going to zoom in just to make it a little bit easier. And then here's where I can add a you also have the ability to use your mouse buttons, like your right click, in order to come up with something. So here we're going to just say, all right. And then, so we have the restroom break. That's not going to show up because that's a POI point of interest, but we could also do that as a custom queue. Yeah. Now, if you notice here, I ended up getting another one of these, and the reason why is I'm still on this drop POI here. So what I want to do is get back to add to route, and then that will allow me to continue with the routing. So now when I click, we're going to continue the route. So here's Olive. You can see I'm just following primarily the red routes, which are very busy. And it's probably DJs, but probably mostly responsible for most of those. But instead of coming down to Roland, we're going to go on Lamont to Redwood, which is what I like to do. I don't like the way that looks, but let me. Okay, that looks better. So as I said, keep looking at what's going on, and then you can also look at the queues, and we'll do that. We'll go back and look at the queues. So we're working our way back to San Rafael. Let me zoom in here for just a second. Now here's a place I want to add a custom queue. I'm going to right click on this, because this is actually kind of a dangerous spot when you're trying to come here and you also have high-speed traffic exiting the freeway. So you could make a note here about and so you can add that in there and help also promote safety. So that will stay with the route. And then the other thing that sometimes happens is when you have 2-lane roads that are marked, if you click on this one, it's going to route you to that side of the road. So it's going to have you do a U-turn. So, keep a lookout for those too. It doesn't happen when you have a single road, but when you have a divided road, it's easy to click on the opposing lane and it has you going down, doing a U-turn, and then coming back. So, but if you just keep a look at it and then also look at the and just for a variation, we could go around this way, and then we by picking up Lucas Valley, we then have a light at there. And then they should be able to click here. So that's routing us through the park and ride, which we don't want to do. So let's just. Sometimes you have to be persistent and tell it you're the boss. So that's actually, we could take a look at this and see if anything looks amiss. But if we could always come back and edit too. There's also this review queue feature. And what that's going to do, it kind of walks you through step by step each of them. So that's if you really have a critical route and you want people to do it, you can do that. So it's generally not necessary, but that is an option. So I'm going to just close that review, so not spend too much time with that. I'm going to save this route. If you're editing an existing route or doing a route, then let's save it with something new. So I'm going to do the I'm going to call it the Red Whale Novato with Fire Road. So we have something a little bit different. All right, so now there's an option here to send it directly to the device, but here is the route, and you can look at it again here and get all the data on it. That's it. This was a 28-mile route with 1,100 feet of climb. You can also send it to a device here, or you could just download that file. If you generally use a Garmin, the fit file works. If I don't have my Garmin with me and I'm planning the route, like I don't have it with me right now, I just save that file from either the download directory or into another directory, and then I drag it into the Garmin when I have it plugged in. So it goes into the courses subdirectory on a Garmin. I'm not sure what it is on a Wahoo, but or you could plug it in and have it download directly. But the fit file works. You can also oftentimes set up how soon do you want those directions. So you could say, I want to know 30 meters or about 100 feet in advance of a turn, or I want that to let me know, 100 meters, like a football field, a little bit more as to what the turn is. So that would be a way of saving that file without that queue coming up. So let's see what else. So let's see if it shows up on now the routes on the Marin Cyclist website. And there it is right there. I just Red Whale, Nevada with Fire Road. So now this becomes accessible to anybody who wants to do that. You can also come into the route library and search for routes that people have done before by either name, location, or distances to get some ideas. And then you could also edit one of those. One of the things that I might have to I'm going to sign out of the club account temporarily. I'm going to go into my own account for a reason. And so what I wanted to do was to look for I'm going to pull up that Newt ride. that we did. So it comes into these with all these metrics. But what I want to do is go to the more and say, I want to open this in the route planner because I want to look at this thing and possibly change it. Now, this was a ride I took. I didn't have this route on things. So this was, if I had not downloaded, I could have just taken this route like here. And let's say I'm going to trace it and make this ride that I took. Maybe I just meandered around, decided that was fun. I'm going to make that a route and have people join me next time. So we could do trace. It gives you a warning that it's not 100% perfect to make sure you take a look at it, but it does help. So here, I'm going to show you here is where we went into the Sally Gale farm where the Newt Brigade headquarters were. When I do the auto trace, okay, it completed a route, developed cue sheets for that. But what it lacks is that turn into the farm. So what I'm going to do is go here. We can kind of see where it is, but just did an add. I'm going to add a control point. I can add another control point. And then I could take this thing and kind of bend it down in there. And so now we actually have that. And I could, I can also add a custom cue to that here. All right, so now we have that turn in there, and that person who, if they had a Garmin, they wouldn't have missed the presentation on the Newt Brigade. And then on this ride, what we deviated a little bit, my wife and I, and we came back by the Tamales Road. But let's say I want to, next time I want to do something a little different. I want to be bold. I want to go up over the hill out of Tamales. So I can see here that where after we did the little park for a rest stop, we were at mile 21.3. So what I can do is I can go to that mile 21.3 and I could just highlight the rest of that route on the way home, and I'm going to delete that from the ride. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to reroute and say, okay, now let's change how we get back. So remember, I got to click back to add to route now so that we know where we are, and then we're going to go down. And we'll take it all the way to Valley Forge Road. And now that Spring Hill is paved, we're going to come back Spring Hill again. All right. This got me. Okay. So I could save this route. One of the things I didn't mention is there's this routing option here. So it says cycling, driving, walking. And, we're doing it for cycling, but if you want to follow roads, then do driving. Because sometimes if you click on it under the cycling, it takes you on pathways. So if you're coming up over from Alima and you were routing, it might take you on the Cross Marin Trail instead of on Sir Francis Drake, like you might want to go. So you can force it to stay on the road by hitting driving temporarily, and it will route preferentially to the roads. Or walking, if you wanted to stay on path, then the walking would work. So, but for the most things, cycling works pretty well, as you can see from that's all that I was on the whole time. So that was a way of just taking a ride that was done. I turned it into a route, and then I actually edited that route to make it a variation of it. And just to give it a little bit of a name, so I know what it is. Now here, since I'm now in my personal account, I have the option here to save it to either my personal or to the Marin Cyclist route. So I'll save this one to the Marin Cyclist route as well. And then again, you can save it to your Garmin or download it. The other thing that you can do is from this More button up here is print a cue sheet. Sometimes it's helpful to have a cue sheet available for people. So this one doesn't have that many cues, but so here's what it would look like in the printed out. So is there any questions that we have?
Mike, I believe there's a few questions in the chat if you want to take a look. And of course, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute.
This is Joe. The question that I asked was, can you take two routes and combine them gracefully? And also, can you take one route and like take half or portions of that route out?
Yeah, well, you notice I actually did that. You can split routes, or you could actually take a gap, something out of a route. But if you take it and delete something from the middle of a route, it actually splits it into two routes. I do think there is a way to add routes. And an example when that might happen is, you get about 80% of your ride, and then your Garmin dies. And then you could plot that back in and show it. Let's see if we can figure out how to do that. Okay. All right, so one of the things that they talk about, like for splitting routes or combining routes, to be if it's like a multi-day ride, but it doesn't have to be. So we'd go to route planner and click on import existing, and then type in the name of the route you want to add, and then add to planner, and then you have to connect the two routes some way. We can give that a try, but let's see if there's any other questions.
Thank you.
With me sharing the screen, I'm not really able to see the chat box.
Hey, Mike, this is Margie. Janet said, asked how you can import something from Strava and then make it a route in Ride with GPS.
Good question. If you can import it in here, because I did show how to convert a route into a ride. It should be doable, because really Strava, if you're using it as from the Garmin is recording that in its format, and it uploads that into Strava, or in my case, I upload into Strava and Ride with GPS simultaneously through the Garmin Connect. So let's go back.
If you're not using Garmin and just using Strava straight, you should be able to export the Strava file into a GPX, and shouldn't you be able to import that into Ride with GPS?
I would think so. So see what kind of file that they would allow us to update. So these are all from the Garmin. The trick is to how that's stored on the Garmin, or I mean on Strava. Let's see if we can. I'm not able to see it, a way to do that. On the Strava, if somebody has a paid Strava account, you might see if that's an option on there as well. I'm going to the three dots to see if there's an export function. Well, there's the save route feature, and that's on the paid platform of Strava. I'm on the paid premium version of Ride with GPS.
I do know as a Strava paid member that you can export a file like in a GPX format. I
Right.
forget if it's a FIT or GPX that Ride with GPS requests, but I've done it before and it works
Yeah.
smoothly.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So
You just export your Strava file and then you go to Ride with GPS and do import whatever
right,
whatever
which is
Ride
what
with
we're
GPS
doing.
wants.
Which is what we're doing here. Is it coming in with the import, and then you just identify the file. So, yeah. So yeah, that's a good thing because Strava actually has some advantages over Ride with GPS in terms of if you like to have all those cups and metrics and just be with the group. But I never liked its route planning tools, whereas Ride with GPS is far superior with its ability to do the route planning.
Mike, this is Don Magdance. I've been the event director for the Porsche Club some years ago, and we used Ride with GPS. And I want to say I learned a lot from you tonight. But several things. Number one is if you want to print out cue sheets, you can also download those to Excel and then manipulate the columns as to what you want, so you get a custom. Lots of times, Ride with GPS gives you a lot of erroneous things that you just can't get rid of on the cue sheet, and that kind of can clean it up. And the second thing is,
But let me just make a comment on that, Don, before you finish. Is that if some of that erroneous information may be because people misclicked, like clicked on intersections where that you get those turn left, where you end up making U-turns and things like that. They get very frustrating. So, but even if you have that, then like you said, if you downloaded it into an Excel sheet, then you can edit that out, those errors. All right, go ahead.
The other thing is that you don't have to download this to Garmin. You can run it directly off Ride GPS, and that's what we do at the Porsche Club. Is
Off your
we just go
phone.
into a Ride with GPS, click on the ride, and it'll give you all the stuff you need to know.
Right, you can do it from the phone app. That's correct. Paul, were there any other questions? Here's a chat.
I'm sorry, what was that, Mike?
We could go into the chat here. I was asking if there's any questions, but here I have the chat up. If this is the question about the difference between the starter, basic, or premium account, I think basically, if you with a club account, you have essentially the premium account or something very close to it. Maybe except the fact that you can't save your rides. Like one of the reasons I don't like Strava is that it's hard to tell. I don't care if I'm the 975th fastest up on the hill on something. I just want to know how I compare with myself. And with the premium account, Ride with GPS, you can set it up and have it just make it your own segment on there. And that may be there might be a couple things like that that you can't do through the club account, but the club account, in terms of planning, it gives you all the tools that you have with the premium account.
And then somewhat off topic, Melissa was asking if anyone had suggestions about a Garmin versus a Wahoo. I have a Wahoo GPS, and I don't know, I'm not that familiar with the current Garmin's, but one reason I really like the Wahoo unit is it can wirelessly download routes from Ride with GPS. So again, I don't know if Garmin has that capability yet.
Yeah, I think the newer models, like I have the 530 and my wife has the 520 plus Garmin, and the 530 I think is like kind of one of their best iterations of it, in that it does a good job of connectivity with the phone and providing the information, and also being able to give you turn-by-turn directions. The higher levels, like the 800s and the 1000s, I think give you the ability to search for points of interest. Like you could search for bovine bakery, and put it in there. Whereas if you with the 530, you have to use the map and click on, press a point on your finger, which is a little tedious, but it's not something that I'm using that for. I can do that. I could find the address or something on my phone and then put that in there and route to it.
Okay, and then Billy had a question about finding an area to start a route, but I think Daryl responded to him. So Billy, I don't know if you had your question answered.
Yeah, again, here's this to start a route. You can put it in here, and you can use your home, or you can put down any location. We talked about if I remember the name correctly. So here we are. I just started at the end of 7th Mountain at Bend, Oregon. And this was a ride I actually did plot out years ago, and it was a most beautiful ride with a lot of alpine lakes. The only problem is back then, the version, I didn't have the turn-by-turn directions, and it didn't tell me the road conditions. So on the 70-mile ride, about 66 or 67 of those miles were really nice pavement. And then there was about 3 miles of gravel, which was dense gravel. On 23, 25s, it wasn't a lot of fun. But now you get that data, and it's helpful. The other thing that you can do if you're doing a ride in a new area, you could also search the Ride with GPS database and see if somebody's been on that road, because there's descriptions or comments in there where they may describe that road. So, all right, let's see.
Okay, and I think that's about all the questions on chat. If anybody has any other questions, please unmute yourself and ask away.
Hey, Mike, this is Margie, can you show people how to search for routes? And can you show them how to find routes within the Marin Cyclist account also? Did you already do that?
Well, we did that, but let's do it again, because what I did is I went back and
And show them how to search anywhere, and also.
I saved an account. So here we have, I'm back into the Marin account here. We have a route library. And then, with the one that I just updated, I did it here by targeting the date and sorting by date. But you can also do it by, let's say, location. Let's go out of the area, and let's do a Katati route. And we want to do it not less than 20 miles. Let's make it between. Okay. Between 20 and 50. And here you can see now we just have a list of rides that start in Katati that have meet that parameter, so you can get a sort of a preview of them. That one looked a little different, so let's take a look at that one. And that was with the Burnside Loop, so you have a nice little climb in there. So again, here's a route that was already done, but let's say if you wanted to change that in some way, again, you could go into this open and route planner, and then you could do some edits to that route. As I said earlier, if you do that, open up an existing route, edit it, save it as a different name so as not to be confusing. Did that help, Margie?
Yeah, I didn't, I wasn't here because I was doing yoga, so I missed the beginning. Did you talk about how to search the whole database, like the public database?
No, let's see. We should be able to do that from
Roots. Oh, no, not Roots.
from Roots, right? Rides is, so this might just be pulling from.
No,
the
it's only,
Merck.
go under Find. Find.
Upper left.
Yeah. Yeah, now you get all your routes. So if I could do this, I could do that same thing, 20 to 40 miles and put the Katati in here. And then we're going to just start within 5 miles with Katati. And you'll see how the great number of rides. You also have some options here where you could do it for unpaved. Let's do that. You'll see how many we show up. I showed the heat maps, and generally, the one thing I don't know about the heat maps, it doesn't distinguish between road or mountain biking. So but by the pavement surface, you'll know whether that's a mountain biking road. So now you'll see that there's 5,065 rides for Katati. So again, you could also you should be able to pick one of these and then also try to edit one of these. You may have to take that ride and make it a route, as I showed you with the trace feature. And there's two ways. There's the automatic trace, and then there's the manual trace where you would go in there. So I now have this open up in Route Planner. And if I do a trace, there's also the manual trace. And that's just where you basically, it shows this as gray. And then you just, click over the route and build it that way. But you can also deviate at any point and say, instead of going Chileno Valley, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go up Wilson Hill. And so you've changed that route. And now you can continue designing that route. So again, it makes it easy. You can find a route, change it pretty easily, and that will shorten your time. But you saw that I did the basic Red Whale route with a little bit of a change from scratch, and it didn't take but a few minutes to do that. The real keys, and let me get back to, is look at the cues as you go along And just remember the little rhyme. If there's a wrong cue, hit undo and then correct that. And then you could add the custom cues for important stops or information. Like I said, the little lecture we had for the Newt Brigade. You could add the points of interest for other information, like you could identify a place for post-ride beer and put that on the map. Other than that, map, post it so everybody can see it and join you on the ride and have an enjoyable time.
Thank you, Mike, for doing all of this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy riding. Be safe out there.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.